And we're live. Hello, and welcome to the Comix Experience Graphic Novel Club for the April 2016 pick, which is 5,000 kilometers a second by Manuel Fior. Did I get that right, Manuel Fior? Did I pronounce that right?
Sorry, I don't hear you very well.
I asked if I pronounced it right. Manuel
Okay.
Fior. Yes?
The right pronunciation is Manuel Fior. But anyway, nobody speaks it in a right way. I'm an Italian living in France, so I'm very used to distortion of my name. No problem.
Yeah. That's an interesting play. Actually, wait, before I say that, I just want to make sure you read the book, everybody liked the book. Yes, nice, beautiful thing. Okay, so you've got some enthusiasm here. So you are an Italian who then moved to Berlin, who is now living in Paris. Is that right? Did I miss one there?
Yes. Hi, do you hear me? You see me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear just fine.
Okay. Yes, actually, I'm an Italian author, but I moved from Italy in '98. At the time, I made one of this exchange program called Erasmus here in Europe, and then I went to Berlin 5 years. So I actually went to Berlin and I never came back. I'm coming back very often in Italy for to see my family and for work or festival, but I spent my life for quite a while traveling around Europe, and also because of my previous work, I am still, but I was an architect. I had to do a lot of works that were related to that, and then sent me in very different places, like Egypt. And so, if you read the book or just saw it, all the places that are
Scenes.
Yes, they're really places where I lived and where I worked, like Egypt, Norway, or there are even places I didn't put in the book, but where I traveled. So this book is it's fictional. The characters are invented, but all the scenes are placed in some place that I know rather well, for having lived there quite a while. So
I can see that the place is all feel
sorry, Brian. Brian.
Yes.
I actually don't hear very well. I don't know what's wrong with the microphone, or
Hold on half a second.
yeah. Or maybe it's the connection, I don't know.
Is this any better? Can you hear any better now?
Yes, now.
No?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Is that better? Okay.
Yeah, I have the feeling you really have to speak into it.
Right. I'm just afraid of blowing it out and making it too noisy, I guess. So can you hear me now?
No.
Technology. All right, I'm gonna try and talk really loud then. Is that any better?
No, the problem is that the connection is a bit wired. Like it's yeah, I hear your voice very distorted in a way, and there are some blanks sometimes.
How about that?
How about that? Is that any better?
Real better.
A little better or a lot?
Better.
Okay. What did you do, Jordan?
I switched it to the internal mic here, so we'll just be
Oh, so we're literally going off
the mic that we usually do.
Okay.
All right.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear a bit better.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going. It's the fun of technology here. So my question was going to be, you were an architect, and then you became a cartoonist, and those seem like diametrically opposed
disciplines, right? Particularly with this your style of art, because it strikes me that architecture is very much about precision and being precise, and your art is very loose and very expressive. So I'm wondering about that journey.
It is true. So actually, now I hear a lot of my voice. I hear an echo of my voice. But anyway, I'll try to do it anyway. The thing is that so actually my family was not so enthusiastic about my choice of being a comic author. So I've been forced to do something else, something serious. And so I did that, but then the urge of making comics came back again. And when I diplomated and I also started to work as an architect, it came back very strongly. I remember once I was in Milan looking at Lorenzo Mattotti exhibition. I don't know if you know him. It's an Italian comic author that I'm very fond of, and I think I walk in his tradition, and I was so overwhelmed by this exhibition that I had to continue start over again making comics. And when I did at the beginning, the thing is that architecture is a really precise work, and I didn't want at the time to be like the architect who makes comics, like who puts a lot of architecture in comics, and that is well known because this is his main thing. I just wanted to run away from it, and also to run away from this kind of idea that has been put on me to be like the serious guy and the one who was responsible. So I don't want to put it like in a tragical way, but in a family it was really a big struggle when I was a kid and when I was a young student. So comics was the way for me to say, okay, I'm starting over again. I'm making something new. I'm making something different. And maybe now I feel I'm kind of with some books that you haven't read yet, that are like the following one is called The Interview. I'm beginning to take architecture over again in my stories because I'm a bit more, maybe, let's say, that this battle is a bit over, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. How do are your parents okay with your art now that you've done? You're at 5 graphic novels, 6 graphic novels at this point, and you have a good career. You won the grand.
Yeah.
But you won the Best Album Festival. Those seem like fairly significant events. Did that make it easier for your family?
Yeah, I'm old now, you know. This thing were like a long time ago, actually. So it was.
I have no idea what's going on here.
The line's back.
Oh, you hear me? No? Some problem?
Yeah, we hear.
No, I was saying that now I'm old enough. This was related to actually almost 15, 20 years ago. So my parents are okay now, but it's kind of it's a bit more related to the moment when a guy has to make his choices. And I've been reading American comics also since I was a kid. And I always dreamt of being, I dreamt of being a Marvel artist, actually, at the beginning, like drawing for Marvel. I also sent stuff to Marvel, like late 80s, beginning of the 90s, but I never get any answer. I still wait for it. So it has to do with this time, like when someone struggles to make something that is very not conventional in a way.
Right. You want to draw from Marvel. What characters would you like to draw at Marvel?
I still would love to draw a Spider-Man issue, and I don't know if here there is this possibility to share the screen.
Yeah, you can. There should be a little button on your screen that it looks like a television screen with an arrow that points out of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that should be able to share your screen.
Okay. I'm trying.
Okay.
So are we.
You see something?
I see your Facebook page. It looks like.
Okay. And maybe I will show you something that I drew when I started as a workshop. That's not that. Well, I'm not finding it now. Ah, shit.
It's okay. We can keep talking.
Okay.
It's fine. You keep looking while we're talking.
Yeah.
So one of the things you mentioned was being influenced by Matadi, Lorenzo Matadi.
Yes.
Just how many people in the room know Lorenzo Matadi? Peter does. Yeah. Nobody. Oh, Seth does. Okay. So Lorenzo Matadi in America, really only one or two of his books have really ever come out. Fires would be the best known one, and it's this beautiful just explosion of color and expressiveness and energy. And I was looking at some of your early work, Manuel, and I certainly saw that influence. Though something like 5,000 kilometers doesn't strike me as having a lot of that same influence. So how much do you still think you're influenced by an artist like Matadi?
Well, the influence from Matadi is I think, like more or less the concept of doing comics. Let's say when Matadi made The Fire is the first book I read. I'm not finding for the moment the file I want to show you, but I'll show you later. When I read Fire, Fire is a book that Matadi released in '86, and he put in this book all this result of a certain history of art. Like there is some German expressionism, and also something from the post-impressionist. So he also utilizes techniques that are normally linked to fine art, and he put it into comics. And that was something really new to me, because for me, as I learned to do comics, it was like Winsor & Newton #7, black in Indian ink, and you should draw the Romita's way.
Right.
But when I saw that, it was like a kind of huge break, and now I feel that I got my own style, but still this idea of mixing up things together, also that comes from other worlds, you know. Sometimes comic artists are very related to other comic books, and they just look at other comic books. But what Matadi did, and other artists in France and Italy, was to say, okay, why not let's pick some Impressionism paintings, or some architecture, or sort of trend history also, and try to mix it in the book and see what happens. So this is actually the feeling with which I'm doing comics also now. And this is I guess the biggest heritage of Matadi for me now.
Yeah, he's an exceptional creator, and the expressiveness. So one of the things that I wonder about is there are a tremendous number of very influential Italian cartoonists. Hugo Pratt would be a great example. Kripax, Milo Manara, Matadi, as we said, Liberator. How is the market in Italy? the economy of is fumetto, is that right?
Yeah.
Is it a thriving market in Italy, or is it not so much?
Well, in Italy, there's a reason if I'm living in France. In Italy, situation is very linked to some periods. Like the artists you mentioned now are all artists, Ugo Pratt, Guido Crepax, that belong to the 70s, in a way, 70s, 80s. Guido Pratt also 60s. And then there was a moment like the 90s where there was like a huge black hole. And that's why also many young comic artists, they quit their job. So now situation is like that. On on the one side, there's a very popular there are very popular comic books that are sold in the kiosk. I don't know if it's the right name. Huh?
Yeah, we call it, but
yeah.
I know what you.
Okay, and it's a very commercial kind of comics. They're like a genre style. It's, I don't know if you know, it's like Tex Willer, Diabolic. It's very old-fashioned black and white comics about Western heroes that are now 140 years old, but still run with their horse in the desert. And actually, they're very much derivated from American cliches, I guess, or the noir, hard-boiled cliché like the investigator. But if you don't want to draw this, and they have very strict, how do you say, way to do it, also graphically and from the point of view of the story. If you don't want to draw this, it's very, very tough. Like doing comics my way, doing my own books, I guess there are like 10 people who are doing that in Italy. Like publishing his own graphic novels, like I don't know, Daniel Close or Adrian Tomain could do in USA. So that's why I'm in France. France is actually a very different culture, and you have a wider, I don't know, spectrum of comics you can read from like the very strict commercial Tintin or Spirou stuff to the reportage to the like graphic novel book as I do. So it's going a bit better also in Italy because like I don't know, 10 years ago we would never had like an article of a newspaper about our books. Now we have some attention, at least. We don't have the numbers of the sold copies, but we have some attention. So it's going better, and I hope it will be better in a way.
Are your books, because you're working with French publishers, are they first published in French, or are they published in Italian first and then translated into French? How does the translation work for various languages?
Normally they appear in French and in Italy at the same time. Oh. I always write in Italian because it's already quite different to write in your own language. Writing is a different task, so it would be impossible for me to write in French. I just wrote in French. My newest book is called d'Orsay Variation. D'Orsay is the Museum of Impressionism, and I made a book about. And so I started to write it in French because it was all French material in a way, French biographies, French artists, and I asked a friend of mine to check if the language was okay, to turn it a bit. Hey, I don't, I find the horrible image I wanted to show you. It's
please, let's see.
It's you're still connected to the.
No,
we can see your face right now.
Okay. So I had to take it from Facebook, but in a way, this was a kind of. You see something?
Yeah, no, I do. It looks. Wow, that's really old.
That's. it's like I want to humiliate myself. Huh? But,
It was like Flash Gordon almost.
it was, I guess, it was the Jim Lee period when Jim Lee took the X-Men, and it's really bad because it's this phase where you don't have your own style and you just make a mix of things you see, but a very bad mix anyway. So. But,
well, everyone has to start somewhere, so that's fine. You know, so did you submitted this to Marvel Comics then?
I guess so. Yes. This is why they never answered. But and this is okay. I show you something better now. This is the cover, the white cover of this book, the d'Orsay variation that I just published here in France and in Italy.
That's gorgeous.
So everyone has a hope of getting better.
Do we have an American publisher for this, or is this only?
So not yet. Fantagraphics now is planning to publish another book of mine. It's called The Interview. Is this one, and it's black and white book. That will be released the next year, the beginning of the next year, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's a book I'm very attached to, so story of mine, and as I told you, there's a bit more architecture in it, and well, and then let's see if American readers like my work, and so Fantagraphics will publish further.
Well, I mean, we loved this book, and as soon as we saw this in the catalog, we knew it was something special. You know, we knew that this was a special and important book, which is why we picked it for the book club.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to remind you, we have 5 people viewing on the internet. If any of you people who are on the internet who are watching this have a question, please submit your question, and Emma will run it over to me, and we'll ask. And I will take some questions from the room in just a moment or two, unless someone has something they immediately want to ask. All right, I'm gonna keep going with my questions then. My list isn't really that long. One of the things we always like to talk about in these meetings is sort of the process of creating comics, and every creator has, as far as I can tell, an entirely different process than every other creator. Some people write it all out in advance, you know, doing full scripts. Some people just start doing thumbnails. How's your process work for creating a book of this length?
Well, speaking of 5,000 kilometers per second, I don't think it's a good example because it was really a very anarchical process. Let's say, in general, this quite sound a bit strange, but I never write down a storyboard of my books. It means every morning I begin a new page and I don't know exactly what will happen. This doesn't mean that I don't have a story in mind. I guess for each book I do, there is like a couple of books like that that are mainly written. Like they're just like the ideas. I try to develop the universe of the book, like the references or why like a certain character says so or act in a certain way, or what am I talking about in this book. So I make a kind of auto-psychoanalysis of myself. But then when it comes to draw, I don't want draw to become like an execution of a storyboard. And since I take also a long time to do books, like 2-3 years, I don't want to see, okay, I will have to draw all this. I hope that every time I draw, I will find out something new, and that's what happens actually. There are some characters at the beginning that looks like they're not so relevant, but then they ask for being more important or be more present in the book. Like, for instance, right now I will show you something nobody saw. Yes, this is like the 30 page of my very newest book I'm doing. So, and at the beginning, I just wanted to do like this is like the very first page. At the beginning, I just wanted like this character to introduce the story, like to open the story. But then, drawing it, I felt that he was really a strange guy, and so I decided to give him more space. And now it's kind of I'm at page 35, and he's still walking in the city and he's still speaking. Is this guy with this bizarre cap? I mean, he's becoming a main character of the story. He already became, and he twisted all the storyline in a way. So actually, the way I'm doing comics is I always try to walk with my characters together and to be very attentive of what they want to be. And so the story will change in a way. Will most of the time I don't know how the story ends. I know how the story ends in the end. Actually, I experimented this way of doing comics for the first time in 5,000 kilometers per second, and now I have some experience in that. But when I did the 5,000, it was like the chapter 2. I drew it after the chapter 3. Because I need someone to in between. It was all a huge fill-up work of like making sense out of the story. It's not a method I would command. I would like suggest in a way, but it's my way of doing comics. You know, when I'm, you know, I don't know. Maybe you know Moebius.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I'm a huge fan of Moebius, and when I was a kid, I read that he drew the Garage Hermétique. I don't know the name in English, but
Garage.
Yeah, he drew it like a 100% improvisation, and I was very fascinated by that because I feel that when you read it, you can feel the same surprise that he had, like in drawing it, like, oh, what's happening now? Or like, this is one very important thing when an author is surprised by his own work and or his own character. I guess the reader would be surprised too. I feel it's like a fair relationship with the reader to say, okay, really, I'm taking my risks, so come with me.
Yeah, no, I like that. I find that fascinating. I find that especially interesting with 5,000 because the relationship and what happens in the relationship is so central to the book. And so you didn't know what broke them apart then? Is that one of the things you're saying?
I didn't know what. Sorry.
That the events that broke Lucy and Pure and that broke them apart. Did you have that part of it figured out, or?
No. Actually, at the beginning, I started this book when I started 5,000 kilometers. I was living in Norway, in Oslo. It's very cold and dark, and I was quite missing quite a lot Italy, and like I didn't feel very much integrated. So I remember I drew the very first page, you know, with this yellow building, and this is a kind of souvenir, memory of my childhood. I had in front of my building, this yellow building, and I drew it also to make like keep it warmer, like in my heart. And then all the first scene develops actually just looking inside the windows what happens. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know who the character were. I didn't know. I got to know Lucy, and then two kids looking at her, and then okay, that was the beginning. But this book is based on a very like fragile stuff that I try to keep alive all along the book. And it was a surprise for me also that a reader could read the book at the end, because because I mean it was so yeah, I guess I would say personal. And when I finished it, also I understood that this book was a kind of you know, I've been traveled quite a lot, and I've been shifted from place to place. Sometimes you get a feeling of being like not so stable, not so good on your feet. And this book, it was a way to like to in a way to sit down and to okay, see what had happened. So think about it in a bit more clear way, also about the relationship, and also to because the book, you know, the end of the book is a bit in the future. Sure. As the characters, they're, let's say they have my own age, they're born in 75. I imagine that they get older than me. Like I'm 40 now, but they become 50. So the end of the book is actually slightly going into the future. And so the purpose, it was also to like to make happen bad things, not to me, but to them. So to exorcise some fears that you have, no? I mean, stories, they're also made for that. Sometimes you have some rage, or sometimes you have some happiness, or some fear that someone will, you don't know why, but it will happen to you. And so it's a kind of, I don't know, maybe an obsession. But then you make some characters, and they are made of paper, and you give it to them in a way, so that it's you take away from yourself. I don't know if it's clear.
No, that's absolutely clear. It's an interesting process, because I think you're the first person we've interviewed so far who doesn't plan it out very strictly and doesn't have it all kind of figured out.
Yeah, once I spoke, you know,
particularly.
Once I spoke with I don't know if you know Kikuo Johnson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was invited. He made a book with my publisher in Italy. He was invited, so we were on festival together, and I spoke a bit with him, and I tried to illustrate my way of doing it. He was like, "What?" I guess that there are very different schools.
Sure. Yeah. No, we were just talking to Dan Clowes last meeting about patience, and you know, he said no, he planned it all out, and it was all very planned and very precise, and very organized. Let's talk a little bit about your drawing on something like 5,000 kilometers. When you're doing watercolor like this, are you doing all the watercolor? Are you doing black line first and then adding watercolor, or are you doing it all straight in color?
Okay, for 5,000 kilometers per second, I tried the more I could to draw with colors, like not to draw with pencils. So I remember I made a sketch with a yellow color that stays beneath, and then I started to draw directly with colors, because otherwise I would have lost the freshness of the drawing. And this is like a suicidal way to do comics, but because you throw away a lot of stuff. And then I have here some pages, well, they're very big. Sometimes there are like entire pages like this, that I threw away. This page is not in the comic, or I just took like one panel because the other one weren't good. And I guess you cannot see it here, like, but all the pages there are like a kind of patchwork of panels glued together. So that the final result is what you see in the comic, but if you can see at the page, I mean, watercolor is a technique that doesn't allow you to correct. If it's good, it's good. Otherwise, you have to throw it away. So I threw away a lot of stuff, and now actually for my comics, I'm doing right now. I'm using another technique that is gouache. This is the one you saw here. That's a technique that allows you to correct a bit more. It's a bit more like a painting technique. If you see like this image here, it's like a technique that allows you to think a bit more. So that's why I quit for a while with watercolor. But in a way, this I don't regret of having done this, because drawing with color, you know, it's a very different thing from drawing Marvel comics. it changes away the way you draw. There's something you can draw when you have a brush or a pencil that you cannot do. So you have to simplify. And when you simplify, you lose a lot of this, like, I don't know if exists this word in English, idiosyncrasies. So things that you steal from everybody, like, you know, like in the 90s, I remember everybody was drawing with this kind of weird curly things, you know, like a bit Tim Burton style. And that is something so related to this period. So when you challenge yourself on a new technique that you don't manage to use 100%, you have to take away all the things that you cannot do and stay to the basic, the most important things. And this is very important for growing for the drawing. When I make classes or workshop, sometimes with my students, I tell to them, okay, now you take a brush that's thick like this, and you have to draw in a panel that's small like this, so you have to like leave away everything. And if it comes to make like a face, you just have to go to the most important things, because you cannot do, I don't know, the small details. So yeah, it was quite a challenge, but I'm definitely happy of having done this.
I have we have someone from the internet. We have Corky Lavelle from the internet, and he says the next time you want to throw away your watercolors, send them to me. I agree. It's very pretty. He also actually has a proper question. He says, do you prefer writing over drawing, or vice versa, or are they equally important to you?
I would say they're equally important, and I must say it's very difficult for me now to divide the two things, because I felt they are so bound together. Sometimes there's an idea that comes from a facial expression. Sometimes there's a dialogue you hear and just put it on the comic. So actually, if I think at the time when I wanted to be a Marvel drawing artist, now I'm quite happy with the situation now, because just like to draw a story that someone else did, it can be wonderful, but it can be also a bit boring now that I'm so into my stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually is another, brings to the other question that Corky asks, and particularly with Marvel Comics, because the Marvel style is all about collaboration, right? It's all about working with a writer who gives you a script, and then you have an inker, and then there's a colorist, and you know, it's almost like a factory almost. So, but he asks, is there anyone that you would like to collaborate with?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, the thing is that when you find someone that like writing stories for you, I think it's like if when you find a girlfriend, or it's like not only professional stuff. It's like you have to fall in love in a way, and like there is like this. I guess you know Munoz Sampaio, the Alex Sinner creators. I mean, they work so good together, and they were like really mixed together. But also, I think also at Marvel stuff, of course. I mean, when I think of the Frank Miller, that Mazzucchelli period, the one stick to like the Daredevil or Batman, you can feel there's a great integration. But so maybe I will fall in love with someone, maybe not.
I would think Jodorowsky and Mobius would be
Jodorowsky and Mobius.
A great example. Ben Wade asks, can I buy the unused panels? You can't buy the unused panels, man. So he also says, as you were writing 5,000 kilometers, when in the story did you know that Nicola was going to, or Nicola, I pronounce it, was going to end up with Lucy?
It's going to end up with Lucy?
Yeah. Did you know that when you drew it, or did you know that before that?
No, I knew it when I drew it.
Okay.
And I remember, especially for 5,000, that actually the week I was finishing it, I planned, like I said, okay, I will need like some more 10 pages to finish the book. But then I arrived at the last page and I said, no, this is the end. Like I threw away a lot of stuff, but I saved these 10 pages in the end, and it never happened again in my work. Normally, I have to. The end is very difficult, and you have to struggle for the end, like to keep all the story together and to finish it. But this one is, well, maybe because I struggled that much during the book. It was nice because I wrote the end at the end, and this was a very surprising ending in a way.
Yeah, it was. Are there any questions from the room? Yeah, Peter.
Okay, I guess.
And like talk as loud as you can,
All
just because the
All right, sure.
Sorry.
Why did you feel the best way to tell your story visually?
Did you hear that?
No.
So the question is why do you feel that using watercolors?
Okay.
Was the best way to tell your story?
Okay. I got it. The thing is that you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I use a lot of Photoshop for doing finish the pages or to balance the controls, but I love to work with a traditional technique because it gives me more possibilities, say. There also, I must say, there is an artist who's called GP. I think it's not well known in USA. An Italian artist, a bit, who made started to make some books at the beginning of 2001 with watercolors, and is a master really, and he's also a friend of mine. So I guess I was a bit influenced by him and Mattotti. The thing is that I wanted to challenge myself for the first time to leave out like this black line, very iconic black line that has comics from the very from Mickey Mouse. All comics have a black line around, and I wanted to try to see if I could do use another language, graphic language, which not the line, but the spot of colors. And watercolor, at the time I had some experience like in commercial illustration. I made quite a bunch of that, and so then I said, okay, let's try to do it.
What was your each chapter? Clearly has a fairly distinct color scheme. The first are yellows and greens, and then we get into Norway, and there's more blues and browns, and so on and so forth through the book. How much pre-thinking did you do of that? Of these colors represent that place or the emotion that you're trying to communicate. Because clearly, once you started your color scheme, you kind of can't stop. You can't, like once you decide it's yellow and green, you can't start putting in blues and purples because it would be very jarring.
Yeah. Well, then I thought about the most important thing for me was the dominant color. And also, this is another exercise I do with my students sometimes, to say, like, if you think about a memory, or also because this book, one thing I didn't say about this book that maybe is a bit interesting is that this book is drawn by memory. I never use any photo. So if you see the Egyptian rail station, and if you see a photo of it, it will be quite different. Because I try to remember, and I forced myself never use any photos. Then it's not the method that I use all the time. New books I'm using also Google Street View, but yeah. So I was saying when I teach the kids, I say, like, don't use like 1,000 color. Like, try to concentrate on the one color that you remember, for instance, of the room where you are right now. Try to resume it like in one color, and then you will find some other, maybe 2 or 3 colors that goes together well. But you have to keep the main atmosphere. And so I did for myself when I thought about the very beginning of the story. Like, this yellow was very important. I was born on the sea, like you maybe, but on the Mediterranean Sea, and I had in mind like this heat that is always everywhere. Like, also, and then you try to keep it from the heat, like having some plants in your apartment and keep it like keep it the things of the window a bit closed, otherwise the heat will go inside. All this stuff were very important to me, and I tried to take the 1 or 2 colors that were necessary to tell that. So actually in this there was a bit of how can I say, of reflection of it, like how all the colors would, like, you can say there's a story of the characters and there's a story of the color as well. Also because the flashback in the end takes the original combination of colors. So it's a kind of rotation. And if you, of course, the book looks very colorful, but if you just look at one page, at one chapter, you will see that there are never more than 2 or 3 colors.
Yeah, no, I very much noticed that. And so because you're not pre-planning it, because you're doing it live, was that more difficult on you to limit yourself to that palette in each chapter?
No, I would not say so. Also because at the time I was quite limited, like, with my skill with colors. So I did it also not to, not to try to do too much and then like fail. So I said, okay, let's draw like with fewer colors. And then it will be a bit less risky, like, for the results.
That makes sense to me. Do we have any other questions in the room? Yes, Christine.
Yeah, I was curious about the origin of 2 references in the book: the poem at the beginning, and then the sword and the stone that plays in the Norway scene. I was just curious where this came from.
Well, as you may have noticed already, I'm so fond of American production of comics, of cartoons, like also Japan. I mean, I'm a huge fan of mangas, but I feel this, you know, this Nine Old Men. It's it's the Disney crew of the 50s. You know, Mike Davis, Milt Cole, Ollie and Thompson, and I think they are like the best drawing artists I saw. Like for me, they're on the pantheon of drawing artists, and also their story is quite amazing because they were at the beginning artists, like fine art artists, were taken by Walt Disney, and they managed to invent a new way of drawing that was based also on Klimt, Picasso, or I don't know, on fine artists. But they invented this thing we call cartoon in a way, and so being so fan of this kind of animation. I don't know why, but maybe at the time I was looking for the 20th time The Sword in the Stone, and I said to myself, no, it's too good. I have to draw it. I have to take it also to show where I come from, you know. And so I invented this kind of little scene, television scene. Ruining the drawings of Ollie and Thompson. But well, I mean, you know, when you do a comic, I don't know if you're a comic artist, but when you're doing a comic, you have I have the feeling that you have to feel like the always very high. Always very like a kind on drugs, because it's a long work and you have to keep it doing like years. So you have to find some drugs that keeps you high in a way and keeps your will to draw and to tell the story alive. Otherwise the reader will get bored, and you too. So everything is that works. It can be a cartoon, it can be an old comic book, it can be a movie or an architecture. It's good to keep the electricity going in a way.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for this drug.
We're from San Francisco, so we're fine with drugs.
I thought.
Right. Hi. Another question from the room? No? All right. What do I got? I got another question. I had you know, because this is the only book of yours that's available in the United States, and before I did this, I went online to look what else I could see of your work, and I was struck that your other work. Well, so what I was struck by was that this is very much on a formal grid. Right, it's not quite a 3x3 grid, but there's always 3 tiers on every page. Even when you break it, they're still within the 3 tiers. Whereas I think this is, from what I saw from the examples, the only work of yours that is really being very strict about stacking tiers. Was that a conscious decision, or did it just happen?
No, this was a very conscious decision, because everything was so like wavy in this book that at least I had to have a grid. And I don't know if you're familiar, maybe you, Brian, with the Valvolina comics. It was this group of Mattotti, Igort, Barnes. They called themselves Valvolina, and they gave themselves some rules back in the 70s. It was the grid. And I used this Valvolina grid in a way because it helped me to keep like at least the rhythm steady. But there's another book I did actually a bit before 5000. Actually, it's an adaptation. It's called Mademoiselle Else. This is the Spanish edition, anyway. It's an adaptation of a novel by Arthur Schnitzler. If you know him, it's the guy who made also, you know, the Stanley Kubrick Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah, sure.
It was adapted from another novel of Schnitzler called Double Dream. Anyway, in this case, I had already a story. I had just to put it in Comix, and you see, like everything is in a way changing. Also, like this is a dream sequence, so I wanted to reproduce this kind of, you know, in dreams you know what comes before and what comes after. So I like to play with a almost like melted grid sometimes, because the story was already there and I didn't have to think too much about it. It was just like the problem of rhythm. So now I feel that I'm so experienced with my work that I can mix the things. Say I'm trying to write my own stories, and sometimes this is also my newest book that I'm drawing right now, and I'm trying to like break the grid sometimes, again, like in strange forms. Maybe because I feel a bit more familiar with my way of doing comics, and I resemble all the information I can do. But this is, I think that it's quite, you know, for me, as I see it, comic language, there are three things that are very important: is the drawing, the story, and the rhythm. And I feel that sometimes comic artists, the young one, they skip a bit on the rhythm. They concentrate about the drawing and the story, but the rhythm, I mean, it's like if you're playing in a band and you don't have a fourth. It's like everything is falling apart. So it's important to make exercise like in comics you have like 2 pages, one in front of the other. How you cut it, how you arrive at the end of the page, how you create the suspense, like that you don't say things. So before you turn the page, all this kind of stuff is very important to keep the reader like reading in a interested way. And I had to learn it like book by book. And when you, I will show you other stuff. And when you experiment in rhythm, sometimes you can do stuff like that. Okay, as my publisher saw it, it was not so happy. Okay, sorry. Like that, he found like some pages like that, and then he turned the page, and it was still black. And when he turned the page again, and it was still black, but with some balloons. Actually, this is a scene in a dark room, in a sleeping room, and this book is like 200 pages, so I took like 8-10 pages, just like with the everything is dark, just like the layout of the page is changing, so that you feel that something is happening. I mean, because if you have a lot of panels, you feel there's an action. If you just have one panel, maybe it's a still scene. So you feel something is happening. Sometimes there's balloon, but you don't see anything. So actually, I see it as an exercise on rhythm.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you use rhythm, because I've thought of that example a couple of times here, and I think it's very true that the number of panels on a page and how they are laid out really control the flow and the emotion of the thing. And it's one of those things that really we never talk about it, you know? It's just something that's very sub rosa, that is just absorbed, you know?
But it's strange, because in Italy there were artists like Guido Crepex or Gianni De Luca, maybe he's not well known, Gianni De Luca is like the most unknown artist that influenced a lot of people. And if you ask Frank Miller, he would say Gianni De Luca like invented some stuff that he used in Batman and in Sin City too. But also Guido Crepax. I mean, you cannot use everything of him, but there's a lot of experimentation of how you cut a page, how you tell a story in a way.
Yeah, yeah. Emma asks, how big are the pages that you're actually? What's your original art size?
You already showed us, but okay.
Well, I know, but he was waving them around, so it was hard to tell.
Actually, I began drawing very big because I couldn't do the details in small pages with watercolor. So actually, these here are 50. Okay, I tell it in centimeters. It's 50 centimeters for 38 centimeters. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't do the conversion there myself.
See it like with my face close to my face, and you can imagine. And then, but then now I'm a bit more experienced, like with the technique. So I drew a bit smaller,
Okay.
like this.
I can see. Yeah.
But still, they're bigger than a book in a way. This is a book, the D'Orsay variation, and the original they're big like this. So yeah.
So it's like 1 1/4 up. Yeah, 1 1/4.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's like the paper I use right now is so fucking expensive that I have to use smaller paper.
Emma also asks about your technique. What techniques do you use to get the rain scenes?
To get what?
The rain scenes in 5,000 Kilometers?
Okay. It's watercolor. Like the other. It's really the same.
Okay.
It's watercolor.
You lay down the background first, and then you're adding the rain on top.
Yeah. Most of the time, like yes, I mean this is a very long time ago, but I'm like for this kind of page, I just give like the blue, and then but this is a night scene, and then I add the other colors. I must say also that these pages are more drawn than the 5,000. Huh? If I share my video once more to show you something. It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so. This is a pencil, actually. A pencil of this page.
But you'll need to switch back to your camera because we can only see.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Maybe so you saw it? No, see? No.
No, we're looking at your computer screen right now.
Okay, but this is a pencil, or I can show you. These are other pencils. So they're not so detailed. It's just like the main lines. Also for the architecture below. There is some study on the characters. This time I study with like how they're dressed and so, or you know, what can I do a bit with a gouache color, more or less, like faces. Expressions, but then let's go back up. But then, okay, this is the finished page. I guess like the technique is that there's always I make the drawing, then I give like the main color. Could be a yellow, could be a blue, can be a burn terra bruciata, and then I add some small other colors that are necessary to the scene.
Mm-hmm. And in that case, where you're penciling it, is that a thumbnail, or are you doing the black line and then printing it out and then painting over it? What's the process there?
No, everything is original. That's why I don't have any pencils. Sometimes I scan some pencils because I like them or because I want to keep them, right? But everything is destroyed with the final version. And so no, it's I don't print it because it's too complicated. So I do it like, and then it's a kind of ethical thing. If Mattotti did that, I can do it as well. Like everything on one page.
I like that.
I'm a bit stupid.
Yeah, you do it. Yeah. Any other thoughts from the room, Peter? You look like you have a question.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about your thoughts on romance and relationship comics. It seems that much of the plot of 5000 seems to be a sort of anti-romance comic in that the two lovers never get together, whereas in romance comics, that's the whole point, that they do. How much of the story was, in a sense, the reaction against the cliches of romance comics?
Did you catch that?
The last question, how much?
How much of 5,000 kilometers was a response to the tropes and the genre conventions of romance comics? Yeah.
Oh well, it was a response to myself. I tried to do a story as realistic as possible in a way. So with all the deceptions that you can have in life, but also with the good things that happen. I mean, it's a story that is not going to give you any comfort in the end, let's say. This is not the point of the story, but maybe it will give some comfort, like when you read it, because you feel that you lived some moments like that, like crazy falling in love or some separation. It's not like a well-ending story, but I think is a sincere friend in a way that walks with you. So. Actually, when people read it, normally they're a bit. Some people they're a bit. They have a kind of deception because they say, "Oh, it's too sad." But I mean, sad things are. I love sad books, and I love feeling someone who feels sad because you don't feel alone. But apart of that, I didn't want to do a sad book. I want to do a book that sticks to reality. And reality sometimes is that maybe you don't find the girl of your dreams, but maybe you found a lot of stuff, a lot of people that were, I really love this book of Chester Brown, Paying for It. When it was published in Italy and France, I bought it. I bought it in the American edition because it said something so true that, like, in the end, it says like this romantic couple stuff. It's for some people it works. For some people it's really perverse because they feel they don't integrate to a kind of society that imposes you that. So this is very, very true, and it was very courageous to say that. So my book is less courageous, but wants to depict things how things are or normally works or good or bad, but it doesn't happen. It's not important the result of the story. It's the moment through which the story goes that are important. And maybe you can see also to life, something like that.
Seth?
Yes. So, you've lived in many different countries, and
Lean this way a little,
sorry.
sorry, because you can't see you.
You've lived in many different countries, and Piero has also lived in many different countries. His response seems to be one of consistent alienation. He always feels as an outsider, and when he even returns back home at the end of the book, he's an outsider. Do you feel the same way, or is he an expression of a perspective?
Well, I felt exactly the same way. This is why I did the book. The thing is that traveling like I did, like for 15 years, and being very unstable, like your work, your relationships. Sometimes it's great because you come to a new town, nobody knows you. I remember when I came to Berlin the first time, nobody knew me, and I could invent a new life, and it's a great feeling. But sometimes it's really very scary because, as you said, very, very exactly, it's a kind of alienation feeling. And I don't know how it works in USA, but for me, I was like beginning to ask, what does it mean that I'm Italian? Okay, I speak Italian, but I've lived everywhere, and I didn't put any roots anywhere. So what does it mean, my identity in a way? And one thing I was sure, because I tried to do it, is that there's no coming back in a way. Once you started, I tried to go back in Italy a couple of months, just to notice that all people I knew were maybe a bit changed. I was changed as well. I could not find the same thing I left, in a way. So I mean, this thing had some good and bad moments, and now I would say I settled down in France, so I feel more comfortable about it. But Piero's character represents this situation where everywhere you go, like you do something wrong in a way, and you cannot come back. So, but you can hardly say there's a winner in the book, because there's Nicola, who never leave the city. We don't know much about him, but Lucia goes back and yes, goes back to a life that is not maybe so fulfilling. So yeah, this was the feeling at the time, but it got better. I don't know if I answered quite well to your question.
Oh, I think we asked that question pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a sense in the book that Nicola was in love with Piero in a way. I mean, maybe just a camaraderie level, but I felt there was like a level of jealousy there that.
I mean, all you imagine about the characters is legitimate.
Sure, of course.
And also I don't spoil it. If you read the book, you know it. I mean, at the very end, you understand that Lucia, Piero, they and Nicola, they have built something meanwhile together. But is that like cheating? No, because Piero and Lucia, they were apart all lifelong. So it's just like a feeling of illusions that are a bit like cracked.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anything else from the room? Any other thoughts, questions, comments? No? Nothing? All right. I think I'm out of my questions too. I wanna thank you very much for taking this time and talking with us here. I really want to say this is a beautiful book.
Thank you.
It was tender, and I really hope that this does well enough that we keep seeing more of your work in America.
At least
And I especially want to thank you for the beautiful bookplate. That's just gorgeous, and I know that we all really appreciate that a lot. You know? So thank you very much. Thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you for getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and coming and talking to us. And while you're sick and you're getting up at 5 in the morning, and I really appreciate it.
There's one thing I want to tell you. Maybe you don't know. I will be at El Cafe. The comic festival in Toronto. There will be exhibition also with the originals, some originals, not all of them. So if somebody has a chance to drop by, I would be glad to see you.
Yeah, and anytime you get into America and you want to come to California and San Francisco, you're more than welcome here.
I'm dreaming of it.
You know, yeah, absolutely. We can totally happen. So thank you very much, Noel. And I want to say that next month's book, the May book, is Lucy Knisley's Something New. Lucy will be joining us again on videotape because she's extraordinarily pregnant. She is 9 months pregnant and she's not allowed to fly, so she can't be here in person. But she did agree to do the video call with us, so that'll be next month's book. We have the copies of Something New. If anyone wants to pick it up today, we do not have the signed book plates. Those will not be here until Friday, of course, because that's always how it works, right? But that's coming soon. And then the last thing for anybody who's in the room, we have another ladies' night coming up. This year's theme is Stitch and Bitch, which I don't even know what that means, but
it means you knit and sew and crochet and do all of those wonderful things and bitch about things, in this case, comics.
There you go. So we're going to bitch about comics and for all the women. All right, so that's it. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank all of you for coming, and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.